لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وآله وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. Last time we looked at the meaning of Shari'a, the basic meaning of Shari'a in the Quranic usage, and I was going to look at the Quranic verses related to it, and then its usage in different Islamic discipline. But let's reread the passage we read last time and see if we need to do that at this point. But we'll do that whenever the need arises. So until the early 19th century, and for 12 centuries before then, the moral law of Islam. So, as we saw last time, Sharia is not just the moral law of Islam. Sharia is not just the moral law of Islam. It is the way of life. Which include, from which you get morality, moral law, law in more limited sense, manners, etiquettes, etc. So the basis, so in that sense, Islam is a civilization. Creation of a specific type of individuality, society, culture, education system, full life world. Number 3, a system, a state. So that's all Islam is. Ad-Deen, Sharia in that sense. Ad-Deen, whose content is Sharia, the Islamic way of life, which include belief system, values, the rules and regulations, practices, etc. So the Sharia had successfully negotiated customary law and local practices, customary practice that and had emerged as the supreme moral law and force regulating both society and government. Negotiated. And customary law and customary practices are important. Custom practices it's not that Sharia negotiates in the sense of some sort of a bargain, but more positively, these are sources of Islamic law. Al-Adat, Wal-Araf, these are important sources. And whenever Quran say Al-Ma'ruf and Al-Munkar, what it means is Al-Ma'ruf, what is known to be good, and Al-Munkar, what is known to be bad. So these at times refer to these customs among different people. And the basis for accepting good customs and good local customary laws or traditions is anchored in Islamic view of history, according to which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent prophets to every nation. So every nation has in their tradition and in their customs the remnants of prophetic teachings. So when Islam comes, it doesn't destroy everything. It's yuzakihim. It purifies the society and the individual it meets. It keeps what is good in them, and it purges what is bad in them, and it rearranges social order in a way in which it uses, and this is part of Islamic social engineering, uses the good customs in a given society, connects them to Islamic teachings and laws and Islamic customs and Sunnah in order to make Islam natural in a particular society. That's if you want to call it negotiating customs and customary laws, you can call it, but it's a more positive conception as compared to the word negotiating, which, as we see, kalimatul haqq urida bihal batil, a lot of it we'll see in Hallaq, kalimatul haqq urida bihal batil. And the basis of this taking good from that's what the Prophet said, khairukum fil jahiliyyah khairukum fil Islam. So it applies to in the individuals as well as customs and morals and mores, etc. Okay, so the until the early 19th century and for 12 centuries before then, the moral law of Islam, the Shari'a, had successfully negotiated customary law and customary practices and had emerged as the supreme moral and legal force regulating both society and government. Not just regulating, but governing in the more comprehensive Foucauldian sense of the word. And regulation is just a part of that. And not just society and government, but also individual. That's very important. Okay, the law was paradigmatic, having been accepted as a central system of high and general norms by societies and dynastic powers that ruled over them. So the Islamic law, or Sharia in the sense of the Islamic, was the supreme law. So the law is paradigmatic. So Sharia is the supreme law governing individual social and governmental conduct. But it is not paradigmatic in the sense that in order for this law to be supreme and to remain supreme, you need an Islamic individuality, Islamic society, Islamic social order, and Islamic state in a sense as well. So the construction or constitution and reconstitution. This notion of Islamic individuality, social orders, it is presupposed by the sovereignty of Islamic Sharia in more limited sense. And this is what Islamic civilization is. So you have an education system, you have a Muslim family, which is both a individual site of individuality, emergence of individuality, social order, and state order. You have Islamic institution, you have madaris, you have khanqahs, you have spiritual associations, you have cultures, you have tradition, you have mores, you have a whole life world and a system related to that law, different systems related to that life world, which are constantly constituting and reconstituting a Muslim individuality, Muslim society, Muslim social order, and Muslim state. And this whole work provides the foundation of, in the backdrop of which Sharia, in a more limited sense, in the sense of the Islamic law, can become the supreme law of the state. And it has to be accepted by dynasties, because it is anchored in a living civilization. So in that sense, Islamic law is not paradigmatic. It is anchored in something which is more paradigmatic, in the sense that it is anchored in a living civilization. Otherwise, that law cannot sustain its supremacy. Cannot sustain its supremacy in the long run. So the law was paradigmatic, having been accepted as the central system of high and general norms by societies and dynastic powers that ruled over them. It was the moral law that created and maintained a well moral law. It was. So Sharia, so moral law belongs to that civilizational order in which the so-called legal law is anchored. So you can't sustain the authority of that law without the rules of without the legal power of the Shari'a laws. But those Shari'a law drive their power from a living civilization, from a moral law, from a spirituality. It was a moral law that created and maintained a well-led order. No, not just moral law, the whole system, life, world, and whole civilization which created and maintained it, to borrow Rawls' effective expression. So this is the second time he's already used this political liberalism trope. John Rawls, probably one of the greatest liberal philosopher after John Locke, and in a sense, John Rawls' whole philosophy is the exact opposite of what Islam is. So, and to reject modernity or liberalism is to reject John Rawls' philosophy as well, as a side note. So this negotiation and well-ordered society, these are all political liberalism tropes. I'm not saying that you can't use them, but we should be aware of that. Okay, so now he's going to go on to colonialism. So it's basically sort of a post-colonial critique, as we will see, without rejecting imperialism as such. Because if you accept capitalism, if you shun struggle against capitalism, then anyway, we'll look at that, inshallah.